Antony Blinken has already met with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and the country's foreign minister. Today, he's attending a meeting focused on fighting terrorism. A coalition of more than 80 countries is addressing the activities of the Islamic State group outside of the Middle East. And for more on this, we're joined by France 24's Wassim Nasr. Wassim, tell us about the current state of the Islamic State group in the world.
Well, actually, the group is active worldwide today. But to start, we'd have to maybe talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is really concerned by this phenomenon since the last attack that occurred in Saudi Arabia, terrorist attacks, was done by the Islamic State on the 11th of November 2020, targeting European diplomats who were commemorating the 11th of November, the end of World War I. And just in August 2022, a Saudi national activated his explosive vest in order to not to get arrested by Saudi authorities. And on the 30th of June 2022, the Islamic State issued a long article attacking Saudi Arabia and the governing family in Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is in the heart of this coalition and of this fight against the Islamic State. And we have a map here where we see all the countries where the Islamic State is present as an insurgency. Not all the countries where the Islamic State was active, meaning conducting terrorist attacks like it happened in Austria a few years back here in Europe. It was the last claimed attack in Europe. And we see that the most concerned continent is the African continent, meaning the Islamic State is present in the Sahel region, the border region between Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, active on the Lake Chad area between Nigeria, Cameroon, and Chad. And of course, Iraq and Syria, the group is still active. One of the latest attacks in Iraq occurred on the Saudi border next to the Arar passage, and one of the latest attacks in Syria, for example, happened on the 10th of May, a few weeks back. It was in Damascus against a police station. Knowing that the group is still active in the Badia region and also west of the Euphrates by conducting small attacks against specific local targets. And the group is also active all the way to the Philippines and going through Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Indian Kashmir. And the war with the Taliban in Afghanistan is very hard and very bloody since the takeover of the Taliban of the country. But one more time, the most important areas of activity are still in Africa, meaning the Sahel region and Lake Chad.
What about Al-Qaeda? What's its current status?
Al-Qaeda is still present worldwide, but with the lesser footprint, meaning the only sustainable areas where Al-Qaeda is still present are in Africa too, and we have a map. It's Somalia, of course, with the Shabab, but also the Sahel region that we just talked about. So the yellow dots are the areas of presence of Al-Qaeda in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Togo, and Benin. The green dots are the areas of presence of the Islamic State. And we see that in between the areas with white dots are the areas of fighting between the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, because the two groups are waging a worldwide war, and especially on the African continent, meaning lots of casualties in their warring effort against each other. But today, either for Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State, the epicenter of jihadi activity is still in Africa.
Tell us more about the Idlib jihadists in Syria. That's become a real hotbed.
It is a hotbed because it is the area where the Islamic State witnessed the most powerful time lapse between 2014 and 2015, and also Al-Qaeda knew its the strongest affiliate it had with the Nusra Front. And I was in Idlib a month ago, and this is the map of Idlib. This is the areas that I got to visit in Idlib. So in this area, we have a group called Hayat Tahrir Sham, which is headed by the former envoy of the Islamic State to Syria, Muhammad Julani, and the former head of Al-Qaeda in Syria, Muhammad Julani, which I met. And they are drawing a third path, if I may say so, because they abandoned international jihad, they abandoned international terrorism, and they are focusing on fighting the Syrian regime, Iran, and the Russians that are present in Syria. So it is the first time, it's the first, where we have a jihadi group saying that taking the path of international jihad was a mistake, And so they are trying to get more local and to get, of course, international recognition being out of this terrorism activity. And this is the footage of Idlib, which I visited a month ago, and I got to meet an Iraqi national, Abu Maria al-Qahtani, who's heading the fight of Hayat al-Sham against the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. And he said very clearly that they will fight any attempts to commit attacks in the West, from Idlib, of course, and that they abandoned international jihad to focus on their jihad against, one more time, the Syrian regime, Iranians, and the Russians. So this is something new. This is something that never happened before, meaning just like prominent leaders being in the ranks of the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda denying this form of jihad. It is maybe an opportunity because Zawahiri, the head of Al-Qaeda, was killed by the Americans in Kabul a few months back, and maybe it is something to build upon in order to pacify some areas, and especially this area of Idlib, where we have 4.5 million inhabitants there, with 1.5 million displaced people.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Wassim Nasr, thanks so much. Some really important context. Wassim Nasr, France 24's expert on jihadist movements. Thanks so much.
Thank you.